Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Morton Menagerie. Today, as with every time, we're going to talk about strange random stuff that has no necessary segue to each other or relationship at all, but it's in my head and it's my show, so I get to do that. I get to do it however I see fit. First thing I want to talk to you about today is the effect of technology on our perception. And I don't think that's any more clear than if you take a look at YouTube and you look at Nibiru or seismic activity or objects in space flying by the Earth. And everybody's freaking out, and everybody, and the signs, you can see that in all kinds of videos. There are signs about the apocalypse. And I just want everybody to know that all this shit was happening all this time. We just didn't have technology, and we didn't have access to information the way we do now. And we certainly didn't have the unfettered, untested, unverified information out there that we do now with all the crap that you see predominantly on YouTube. And I'm not shit-talking YouTube. I think it's a great forum. But it's just a place where people can upload all kinds of random mind-boggling shit without any necessary support or with ridiculously weak support for their position. You'll find out that the only support I have for my position is me. I support myself quite well. But it's the advent of technology and the access to this information and the fact that some people adulterate that information that has led to this ridiculous craziness about the end is near and Nibiru, the planet's coming by, and the people that live on it are going to come over and screw with us or whatever. No, it's always been there. This shit's always been happening. We just didn't have any access to the information that was actually happening. Delicious tea, by the way. And so this access to information has put us in a position of, well, let me go back, let me step back for a second, because add to this access to all this information, add to that the soundbite society that we are. And you have a dangerous combination going forward. So you have people that will listen to the first two sentences and make some kind of large sweeping decision. And that's pretty much what we have. And it's not okay. It's not okay, because then enough people hear it and enough people start acting on it however they're going to act on it. Some people will, I don't even want to get into what people might do or have done, but it's just toxic. It's toxic to our society. It's toxic to the way we think as a group. And if you don't believe in groupthink, think again. Go do some research. And you're going to hear me say that a lot. You're going to hear me say that a lot because that's the truth of the matter. You can't live off of sound bites. Or, well, let's rephrase that. If you do live off of sound bites, you get what you paid for. All right? So the 25-cent steak is not going to taste like the $30 steak. It's just not. Or the $100 steak. I'm going to have to do that sometime, because you get to some of these price points, it's like a shot of whiskey or a steak for $100. Really? I'm thinking to myself, it's kind of a risk, because if it doesn't taste like a $100 steak or a $100 shot of whiskey, I'm going to be a little pissed. I'm not that person that has $100 to drop and go, oh, no big deal. If you are that kind of person, well, A, you're probably not watching this video, and B, I'm so jealous. In a way, but I'm not. So, back to my point, you got to do the research. You got to take the time. The more time you put into understanding a situation, and that means looking at all the perspectives of it, and I'll get into that relationship with our illustrious president soon. But you got to take the time to look at it from all directions. And then ultimately you choose. You take the information that you receive. Hopefully you don't judge the information based on the way the person looks that's giving you that information, or how much you like their hairstyle. See my hairstyle? Or these superficial things, but you actually take the information and you vet it, or you check it out as best you can, and then you make a decision as to what you choose to believe on that subject. Failure to do that results in the kind of society we have right now, which is really kind of weak. We have a terribly weak society. We are a very fragile country. I don't care what you think about the fact that we have all these wonderful things. We have sidewalks, we have streets that have pavement on them, we have traffic lights, we have generally order in our society. It's extremely fragile. It's extremely fragile because it's predicated upon people who don't care enough to invest in their own society, locally or globally. So we are fragile. America is going to break in a large way, in a way we haven't seen since 1928. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it will happen. And it will happen, and we'll just move into another subject here, because of our economic principles. And our economic principles are pretty much make as much as you can, as fast as you can, any way you can, and America will hold you high up on a pedestal. We, probably since the industrial age, maybe even before, starting in the 1850s, started transposing our love of religion to our love of money. And the minute we replaced this whole God concept with money, and we started worshiping money, it was all over for us as human beings. It's a downhill slide from there. It's been a downhill slide. It will continue to be a downhill slide. And yeah, I'll say it straight up right now. I really don't care what you think. I'm a socialist. I'm a democratic socialist. I know and understand those economic systems enough to say that socialism is good. Certainly the way socialism is administered, it really has a lot to do with how good it is. But for these shitbags out there just running around saying, oh, you're a socialist, you might as well be a communist because they all end in IST, is just absolutely pure, utter ignorance. If you're a person that thinks that way, you can turn me off now, because you're not going to like anything that I have to say, and I'm okay with that, because people like you suck. People like you are why America is where it is today. The basic problem we have with our economy and our capitalist economy, and I think I touched on this a little bit last time, is that capitalism is based on expansion. It's like a balloon. You know, to blow it up. You can't have capitalism if there's not something more to grab, if there's not something more to gain. And unfortunately, even in the construct of the planet we live on, now we're exploiting people. I think the perfect example is Donald Trump's concept of let's go invade Venezuela so we can have their oil. Granted, that came from a mentally 5-year-old buffoon, but it really reflects where we are in capitalism. So it's not about expansion and growth and trying to improve the lives of the people around us. It's about expansion and growth and eating up as much as you can. And the reason this doesn't work, and Monkey Face, his tax cut is a perfect example of this, is that he gave a tax cut to the wealthy, and you saw nobody's wages go up. You saw no prices come down. You saw rich people getting richer. Why? Because they're greedy and selfish. That's the basic human thing, I think. I don't know. I don't feel that way. I don't feel greedy and selfish. I will be a little poorer if it will raise the lives of other people. I'm okay because I live in that society, and if the quality of life in that society is raised a little bit and I don't get to be rich and opulent, but I also don't have to worry about seeing homeless people starving, living on the streets in squalor, I'm okay with that. I am really okay with that. Because human beings matter. People matter. And And unfortunately, a lot of us don't. Unfortunately, a lot of us think that the only reason people matter is how we can use them to get what we want or further our ambitions. And that's pathetic, but it's out there pretty pervasively in America. I'm very critical of our country, without a point of reference. I've never lived in another country long enough to really understand or embrace the culture. Japan was the closest country I ever came to really understanding their culture better than mine, or in any sense better than another culture. But I'm very critical of America and American culture because it's anti-human. We say it. We have all kinds of charities. We donate. We give at Christmas. We have little people ringing the bell, and you go and you throw some pennies in their fucking bucket. But really, we're a selfish, greedy, self-centered, myopic culture, society, country, whatever you want to call it. We are. And it will be our downfall. It will ultimately be our downfall. Look to Rome. Rome is a perfect example. Rome is like probably our most recent example of what happens to a culture when they become so selfish and so greedy that the small 1/10 of 1% owns 90% of the wealth. We're well on our way there. I wouldn't be surprised if we haven't already hit that disparity tipping point. Excuse me. And we're on our way down. But nobody can say that for certain until you're actually at the bottom of the barrel looking up and going, oh yeah, I see where we started our decline, kind of thing. That's how it's going to be. And we all contributed to it. I contributed to it. I'm part of this culture. I do that stuff. I get a paycheck. I spend money. I buy stuff. If people are asking me for money on the streets walking by, if I have it, I'll give it to them. If I don't, I don't. Usually they ask me for a cigarette. But I contribute to it because I'm here. And I feel like I'm doing what I can to really help those people who are even less advantaged than the average American. And I mean the people that struggle because of their economic disparity, because they weren't given the opportunities, because they grew up in terrible neighborhoods, because they went to schools that weren't really invested in. And that's, you got to stop and think about education for a minute here. You got to stop and think about how did we get to the point in public schools where the schools in Watts in East Los Angeles are less than the schools in Hollywood or Santa Monica or any of those more wealthy areas. How come the schools are less? Because they have these terrible bad kids going to them? Really, are they bad kids? Are poor kids bad kids? Is that what we're saying here? Because what it turns out to be is that we set up this system where your property taxes really pay in a lot to your schools in your neighborhoods. So a rich neighborhood with high property taxes is going to produce a nice school, where a poor neighborhood with not so great property taxes is going to produce a poor school. Really? Is that public education? Is that really the premise that we wanted to set? No, but you know what? Nobody's doing anything about it, because to change it would mean, and this is a problem, to change it would mean that some of the rich people would have to kick down some of their money to contribute to raising the quality of a school somewhere else. And they're not okay with that, because it's all about me. If I'm paying property taxes, I want my kids to have a good school. I don't care about those kids, 40 miles away. They're not my problem. Well, yeah, honestly, they are your problem. And if they're not your problem today, they will be your problem in the future. Because as we shortchange these children in their education, and they get so frustrated and so flustered, and they have a terrible home life to go home to, they turn out in the streets, and they make terrible choices. I have a hard time sometimes when we look at the criminal justice system. I have a really hard time saying, okay, so we got to punish that person now because they committed a crime, but do you see the pretense? Do you see all the building blocks that led up to that person getting into a situation that allowed them to commit that crime? Because if you understand that, then, we should punish society. Well, let's not punish society. Let's redistribute the wealth. Oh my God, that is such a socialist idea. Redistribute the wealth, right? Sorry, but it's true. It's true. And if we don't adopt some socialist principles real quick, and I don't think we will because of how deeply ingrained and how much we worship money. We're going to eat shit as a society. We're going to eat a big bag of shit. And you know what that big bag of shit is going to ultimately put us in? A socialist society. And here's the bitch about that. Because when our economy does finally have the ultimate crash, and I kind of think it might happen in my lifetime, especially if I quit smoking, when it takes a crap, the whole premise and the whole infrastructure surrounding capitalism goes away. One day, you're going to wake up and your credit card and the money in your pocket's not going to be worth shit. And all of a sudden, you're not going to think about it, but you're going to have to fight to get in the line to get in the grocery store and maybe get some food while it's still left on the shelf. You think I'm exaggerating. I'm really not. It's going to happen that quick. And we're not going to be prepared. Most of us are not going to be prepared. I try to keep some, water and soup and dried pasta, because dried pasta is always good, even if you have to eat it raw, stashed away in case there's some kind of crazy shit going on and I don't have access to the creature comforts that we now enjoy. But when that crash comes, you are going to find yourself instantaneously in a socialist society where everybody is either going to have to get on board and help each other, or faction off and continue in the kind of capitalist mentality of trying to take and grab and steal and stock up all they can for themselves and those small groups of people they care about. That's the other problem we have. We are very selective about who we care about. We care about, of course, our families. I think that's kind of a given. But we care about the small group of people, like the people I hang out with the most, which for me is really nobody. But in general, we have these small factions of people that we care about. But when you get into the larger thing, it's like, oh, I care about them, but really not that much. The neighbors. I don't know. Well, I know this neighbor. I don't know my neighbors in this complex here. But if everything goes to hell, I feel like it's going to be part of my responsibility, because we are in this microcosm here, to try to ensure that our neighbors are okay, that the people that are out there are okay. I don't have to know them. I just know that they exist on this planet. And I think that's important that we understand, or that more of us understand, that sometimes we have to step up and help out people that we don't know. And that's okay. They might, oh my God, they might not even be the same color as us. Holy cow. We have to help out those people too. Yeah, they're human beings. We get to help those all out. And it's going to throw us into a default socialist society, which in the long run is going to be used against us, because ultimately, however this chaos works out and we come out of this calamity, they're going to shit talk the socialist concept. Actually, maybe hopefully most of those people will be gone. I don't know. Maybe they'll eat each other in the process, which would always be good. I would like to see cannibalist capitalists. Cannibalist capitalists. There's a title there for something. They really are cannibals. Right now, it's in a metaphor, but. Yeah, the collapse of our society, it would be awesome if they all turned into cannibals and ate each other. The general population would be better off. One way or another, it's going to change, because it has to. What happens with capitalism? What happens with capitalism is this. It's the same thing that's always happened with capitalism. It's the same thing that always will happen with capitalism. Wealth accumulation, wealth accumulation, wealth accumulation. But the lower part of society gets no benefit or kickback. But see, as we have wealth accumulation over here, we have them throwing these little breadcrumbs that we call lending, or we call borrowing, to the middle class and the lower middle class people. Last time we had that was with the housing bubble burst, when you got all these really rich people that are going, yeah, okay, so yeah, we'll loan to these poor people to get them into houses so that they can own houses too. We'll give them this ridiculous interest rate and this ridiculous lending terms. And we'll tell them, don't worry about proving your income. It's not a big deal. Just say that's what you're making, and hopefully you'll make it one day. And so we had a lot of this, and it built up so much. They were trying to pump up the lower class and the middle class with interest and loans, that the bottom fell out. The bottom fell out. And these people up here actually dropped down a little bit, just a little bit. The wealthy really didn't take too much of a hit. But when that bottom dropped out, it impacted everybody in the middle class down. Even the upper middle class was affected by this. And that's what capitalism does. Capitalism isn't an opportunity for everybody to make whatever they want out of themselves. You don't get somebody, here again, I'm using YouTube as an example, and I'm sorry YouTube, but it's where all the information's available. These guys get on these YouTube infomercials about, look at me, I got my bling watch, I got a watch bigger than my wrist, and I'm not, what the fuck is with the watches that are so giant? Are these blind people? Is that what's going on here? Or you have to wear a watch so big that it draws attention to your wrist? And it catches my attention. I look at that and go, what the fuck's the point? Why don't you just wear a clock on your chest? I've seen that before. But, yeah, so you got all these people blinged up. And, damn, I totally got sidetracked with myself on that one. Anyway, where was I going? See, somebody needs to, call me right now and tell me where I was going with that. Tea break. Anyway, it's gone. It'll come back to me when I'm going to the bathroom or something. The bottom line is that the rich are going to get poor, and I don't care how much money you have. When our economic system collapses, all of a sudden you're just like us. You may have a big house, and you probably got a really big fucking gate around that house, and you probably got a lot of fancy cars. And that, by the way, when you drive all the gas out of those cars, you're going to be in the same problem with us about how am I going to put gas in this car? Oh, because my wealthy richness doesn't get me anywhere anymore. You might have some connections. Maybe that's a good reason to make friends in the oil industry. I don't know. But when this thing collapses, the playing field is leveled. I was bitching about capitalism and talking about the whole premise of capitalism and why it will never work and why it's never really worked. Oh, bam! See, it came back and I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. We get these infomercials with these people showing off their bling, and it's like, I was just a nobody, I was delivering pizzas, and then I got in this deal, this opportunity, and it's usually real estate, of course. And now look at me now, I got this big house, and I got this fancy car, and I got these fancy cars. And look at how rich I am. And you could do that too. Just buy my book, pay for some tapes, send me $5,000, and I'll tell you all the things I did. But of course, it's not going to work for you 99.9% of the time. But all these people so worshiping money, so engrossed with the idea of making and collecting money and wealth and showing it off, they bite on that shit. They take the last bit of their savings that they have and they jump on that shit. And you know what? And they usually end up losing. Because capitalism doesn't work for everybody. You're going to have a good work ethic. No, you don't have to have a good work ethic to make it in a capitalist society. You got to be really fucking lucky. You got to be born into the right family. You got to live in the right kind of culture. You got to get the right kind of education. All this shit that is really predicated upon other people's choices has to line up for you to have a chance to be a happy capitalist. And 99% of the time, it doesn't. It doesn't. Look at the 1%ers. Look at the 99%ers. This is not something that you have to do too much research to establish the fact that if your circumstances don't plan out just right for you growing up, you're not going to be one of those people. You're just not. And that's a problem. That's why we have 1% of the very fucking rich people owning the vast majority of the wealth in this country or in this world. And that's, in a nutshell, why capitalism doesn't work. It's got this up and down. Things go really well. Then we talk about the stock market. The stock market is shit. The stock market is shit unless you got a lot of money tied up in it. And I mean maybe millions, not even hundreds of thousands, but millions of dollars tied up in the stock market. Then it's something important for you. The stock market is not a great indicator of anything, except that after everything goes to shit, or after everything starts going to shit, you see the stock market react to it. Big deal. But for all intents and purposes, and using it as an example, yeah, up and down, up and down. That's capitalism. That's capitalism. Things really well, things really bad. Things really well, things even worse. Things really well, things are kind of bad. Things really well, things are even worse. That's all it does. That's all it does. There's no level playing field here. See, there's nothing level about that. There's spikes and valleys, spikes and valleys. And it rolls me back to the same premise that I had in my first video, which is we're all human beings sharing a very small planet in a very big universe. Why are we doing this to each other? Why is that important? Why isn't peace and working together and sharing wealth so that we can all have a decent home to live in and we can all eat food and feed ourselves and feed our families? Why is it important for me to have more than you? Why is it important for me to look richer than you? Why is it important that I accumulate this wealth? Because that's a value system we set up. It's a value system we set up because we started worshiping money more than our gods or our fellow human beings. And it screwed us in the past. It's going to continue to screw us until this next big crash. And I'm kind of a little concerned about the next big crash, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's nothing you or I or any one person can do about it. So it's going to happen. And the best thing you can do is stock up on food stores and maybe keep some extra gas around. But I'm cautious that this next time is the time when you're going to see people in the streets breaking shit pretty pervasively, not just in big cities, not just in bad neighborhoods, but everywhere. It's just, and you know what? I can't help but think that Donnie is going to have some hand in it, because Donald Trump is that person that if he would flush the world down the toilet if he thought it would benefit him. Sick individual, there's no question about it. Professionals have stepped up and spoken out on it. His own behavior exemplifies it damn near every time he opens his mouth. And the only time he hasn't said anything stupid is when he didn't speak, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know. And I probably keep more abreast of that than I should, because I think it probably causes me a lot of discontent. But that turd burglar is going to have something to do with the demise of our society. And here's another thing, and I heard someone say this a couple of weeks ago, that they were worried about Donald Trump not being reelected. The reason they were worried about Donald Trump not being reelected is because they were afraid of what all the people that support him, how they would react to it. And if you don't know anything about the people that support Donald Trump, you have to understand this. They're white supremacists. They're people that like to have a lot of guns. Why do you think Donald Trump hasn't been assassinated? Because all the idiots that would actually assassinate a president support him. Yeah. So it's all the intelligent people out here that wouldn't go so far as to do that, and that's why Donald Trump is still alive. But those are the nutcases that some people, and I am kind of on the fence about this, are worried are going to take to the streets if Donnie doesn't get reelected and say what a terrible, unfair society we have politically, because that idiot and his small percentage of not very smart followers are going to claim that it was unfair or there was just something bad about it. Because, you know, if things don't work out in Donnie's favor, he is 100% always the victim. He plays the victim like nobody's business. If it doesn't go his way, he's a victim. Has nothing to do with his stupidity or his ignorance. He's a victim of somebody else's actions, choices, or words. I can't express to you my disgust that we let our society degrade to the point of somebody like him being able to get elected. I hope that you've learned your lessons, America. You step up and get more informed. Unfortunately, I'm afraid you haven't. And I use the evidence of walking down the street every day, literally every day, because I walk to work, seeing people staring at their phones. Rarely do I see people looking up to smile and say good morning or say hi. So I go out of my way to do that to people when I'm walking past them on the street, whether I know them or not. Say good morning, say hi. Distract them from that fucking phone that they're looking at, or unfortunately for the people who have their earphones plugged in, which a vast majority of them do as well, we're getting disconnected. Ironically, as technologically connected as we are becoming that much disconnected as human beings. And that is contributing as much as anything else to the demise of our society. I love using this technology. I wouldn't be able to say things like this and maybe have somebody watch it someday without technology. But at the same time, it will be our downfall. It will be our demise as humans, this technology. So anyway, that's why capitalism doesn't work. That's why capitalism will never work. Let's say this. Capitalism would work if, when I as a government give you, the really rich person, a break on your taxes, you literally take that break and you distribute it to the people that work to make you rich. Here's my principle, and I may have mentioned this before, I can't remember, but here's my idea of democratic socialism, and here's how I would start to introduce it. And my point here is that you can still own your business, you can still be a business owner, but my first rule would be, if I was president, or my first my first action that I would try to put through, is that all corporations will get amazing tax breaks if they do two things. Thing number one, their corporation needs to redistribute their stock so that 51% of their stock is owned by employees, people that actually work there. And that board on those corporations that have stock is staffed by 51% employees. So the people that work at this company have an active say in the direction this company takes. Not some people with stuffed shirts and really, a tie that costs more than my fucking car, sitting up in a room making decisions about how we're going to do things to make us richer. Because their premise right now, these boards and these corporations right now, their premise is make themselves richer, get dividends paid out to their stockholders. If 51% of your stockholders are employees, and 51% of the members on that board are employees, then the choices and the decisions made about the direction that company goes are really going to serve the best interest of the employees. That's socialized democracy, socialized workplace. But this whole thing where people that have nothing to do with the production, the manufacturing of whatever this company's making major decisions about the direction this company takes, terrible premise. It's how the rich get richer and the poor, the working class, stay poor. Not okay. Until we change that, and that's just one thing. We need universal health care. I would love to be able to debate anybody. Let me rephrase that in case it didn't come out right. I would love to debate anybody on the premise of universal health care if they can get past the argument about why one human being does not deserve equal access to health care as another human being. Why that poor person that just slept on the street across the street from me last night doesn't deserve the same access to health care as that person that lives in that $200 million home out there above Folsom Lake. What's the disparity there? Why does one person deserve better health care than the other? The fact that you were born into this world and you survived that birth automatically entitles you to access to health care because you exist. And honestly, universal health care for everybody helps everybody. It does. It would cut down on the spread of disease more substantially than any pharmaceutical research, and don't get me started on pharmaceuticals. Holy crap. That's a totally different subject. But the point is that universal health care makes sense. Who it doesn't make sense for Health insurance companies. Health insurance companies whose only reason to exist is to take your money and play some kind of game with a health provider. That's the only reason health insurance companies exist. They are not necessary. They're not. There's no reason for them to exist other than the fact that it's a profiteering, money-making way. Go look it up sometime. Look the CEO up of Blue Shield or Aetna or Health Net. Look up the CEO incomes of those companies, and you tell me why those shit nuggets should be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for doing nothing but funneling money and denying people health care because it doesn't fit in with their actuaries. It's ridiculous. It's senseless. It's insane. And there will be some point in the future, many generations from now, when they will look back on this time, assuming we survive ourselves, and I have serious doubts about that, but assuming we do survive ourselves, they will look back on this time and go, what a sick bunch of greedy fucks. Because we are. Because that's what we are. We've been programmed into it. We've been fed lines of shit in such a way as to make it seem okay. And it's not. It's just not. So anyway, I've been yakking on for a little over 30 minutes now. That's probably long enough to put everybody else to sleep. Nonetheless, I haven't done it for a while. I hope to do it more frequently. And I hope maybe I get one or two people that might just, I don't even know how they would randomly search and find this, but we'll see. And I'll talk more about this crap later on. I'll talk more about some contemporary issues at some point in time, but I get so impassioned that, yeah, it's like, this guy's going to go off his rocker or something. I'm not. I'm just so baffled by how sick, myopic, and selfish we are as a society. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for us as a country. This is not the America that our founding fathers wanted us to have, even though they were slave owners and kind of capitalists themselves. I don't really think this is what they envisioned us becoming. But nonetheless, it is what we are. And where do we go from here? And how do we change it? And there's two ways that things change. There's two ways. I'm going to leave you with this. There's two ways things change. Way number one is lots of fucking money. You can do anything with lots of fucking money. O.J. Simpson just proved that, years ago. Paul Manafort just proved that in his sentencing this last week. Money. Second way that you do things, lots of fucking people. Lots of fucking people getting together. And this is one thing that people don't understand. Sorry, I'm going to go for a little bit more here. People don't get that the whole premise of the hegemony, the people in control, the whole premise of them was to make sure we're divided. Because the people in control, the people with money, know that if we come together as human beings, we can do a lot. Just by the energy of the human beings coming together in a common good or a common cause, you could do a lot. You can affect a lot. Rich people know this. Rich people know this, and so a lot of what's happened, why do you think medias are such big conglomerates now? A lot of what's happening is purposely to keep us separated and keep us divided. As long as we don't gather en masse, then the people in control get to stay in control. Sounds pretty obvious, I know, but you really have to say it out loud and acknowledge it for what it is, and realize that if you want anything to change, way number one, money. Way number two, lots of money, lots of people. You're either going to have lots of money or lots of people. You have lots of people with lots of money, well, they don't exist in this country because 1% owns the vast majority of the wealth. So I don't even know what that would produce. But that's how things change, and that's what it's going to take. And I'm saddened to think that because of the way the people in control have structured our society, they're going to keep us separated. I was talking about walking down the street with everybody staring at their phones or listening to their earbuds. What am I saying? Yeah, they're keeping us separated. And it's working. That's why some massive collapse, some big explosion in technology in our economy would probably be the best thing that could happen to us, assuming we survive ourselves. Until next time, Hopefully somebody tunes in, takes a look at this, and might even share it or talk to their friends. I know that when people make these videos, they talk about pressing the like button and shit like that. I'm not that well versed in it yet, so I don't really understand it. But if there's a like button on this video, press it. I mean, if you like it. And I'll be doing another video here shortly. Hopefully in less of a time span than it was between this one and the first video. You guys have an awesome week. Do something good for somebody else that you don't know.